Gravity became a sudden, violent enemy. Splintering wood shrieked above as the rotten ceiling gave way completely under his weight, sending him plummeting into the dark, unknown depths of a forgotten world. Eros fell through empty space, his hands clawing uselessly at the damp, cold air in a futile attempt to grab onto any passing beam or ledge to stop his descent. Wind rushed past his ears, carrying the pungent scent of ancient decay, wet earth, and thick dust that had settled over centuries in this subterranean tomb. Memories flickered like dying sparks in his mind, showing brief, tantalizing glimpses of a modern city, of crowded streets, of a life that now felt a million miles away. All of it vanished in an instant as the solid stone ground rushed up to meet him, ending his terrifying descent with a brutal, bone-shattering finality. Impact shattered his breath, knocking every ounce of oxygen from his lungs and leaving him gasping on the cold stone like a fish pulled from water. Hard stone met his spine with a sickening thud, sending a sharp, blinding jolt of agony straight to his skull and making his vision blur with dark spots. Groaning, he rolled onto his side, coughing up a lungful of gray powder that tasted like dried ash, crumbled mortar, and ancient neglect. Where was he? Memory failed him entirely, offering only blank, frustrating gaps where his identity and his life on Earth should have been, leaving him utterly disoriented and afraid. Cold sweat dripped from his brow, mixing with the dark grime on his face as he stared blankly into the oppressive, heavy darkness that surrounded him. Darkness pressed in from all sides, heavy, thick, and absolute, smelling of deep moisture, stagnant water, and long-forgotten secrets buried beneath the earth. Above, a faint, jagged hole in the ceiling showed where he had just fallen, offering no real light, only a view of a distant, empty void that offered no hope of escape. Rubbing his aching temples, he tried to stand, but his knees buckled instantly under the immense weight of his bruised and battered body. His legs wobbled like jelly, forcing him back down to the cold, unforgiving floor of what seemed to be a massive, ruined cathedral of some ancient civilization. A sudden, sharp sound made him freeze in place, his heart leaping into his throat as his breath hitched and his muscles tensed with anticipation. Scraping noises echoed from the deep, unseen recesses of the cavernous hall, echoing off the high, vaulted ceiling in a terrifying, rhythmic pattern. Like fingernails on rough stone, the scratching grew steadily louder, multiplying by the second until it filled the entire chamber with a chaotic din. Breathing became difficult as the air grew thick with a sudden, suffocating musk that smelled of ancient sweat, wild beasts, and desperate, unchecked hunger.
"Who's there?"
His voice cracked, sounding incredibly small, weak, and vulnerable in the vast, empty space that swallowed his words almost instantly. No verbal answer came, only a chorus of low, ragged inhalations that sounded like panting predators waiting in the deep shadows for the perfect moment to strike. Dozens of tiny, glowing red embers suddenly ignited in the darkness, shining with an unnatural, predatory light that locked onto his position. Crimson eyes stared back at him, blinking in unison with a terrifying intensity that made his skin crawl and his blood run cold. Panic surged through his veins, hot and electric, screaming at him to run even though his broken body refused to cooperate with his frantic mind. Slowly, the eyes began to move, descending from high stone ledges and creeping out from behind cracked, ancient pillars that lined the great hall. Shadowy silhouettes took shape in the dimness, moving with a jerky, desperate grace that defied normal human movement and spoke of ancient, primal urges. Pale, emaciated figures emerged into the faint light filtering from the hole above, revealing their horrific, hunger-ravaged features to his terrified gaze. They were women, but horribly gaunt, their ribs visible beneath tattered, decaying rags that barely hung onto their fragile, bony frames. Some possessed long, pointed ears that drooped with exhaustion, while others had thick, muscular builds and short, sturdy statures that spoke of underground lives. A few even had animalistic features, like patches of thick fur on their shoulders and sharp, curved claws instead of fingernails, glinting in the dark. Long, tangled hair hung over their pale faces, yet nothing could hide the feverish, desperate intensity of those burning red stares locked onto him. A primal desperation rolled off them in waves, so thick and tangible it felt like a physical weight pressing down on his chest, choking him. Eros scrambled backward on his hands and knees, his palms scraping against the rough stone floor until they bled, leaving red smears behind.
"Stay back,"
he yelled, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird trying to break free from a cage before it was too late. Instead of retreating, the horde let out a collective, piercing shriek that rattled his teeth and echoed through his skull, a sound of pure madness. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated hunger, a desperate cry of starvation that had nothing to do with food and everything to do with survival. Scrambling over one another in their haste, they lunged forward all at once, a wave of pale flesh, sharp teeth, and desperate claws. Suddenly, a brilliant neon pink light erupted in front of his eyes, cutting through the darkness like a blade and forcing him to squint. Words began to form in the air, glowing with blinding intensity and hovering right before his startled, disbelieving face. Male presence detected. Initiating Eros sex system. A strange, electric hum vibrated through his bones, starting from his toes and rushing straight to his chest, filling him with a bizarre power. Warning. Extreme biological scarcity detected. Chances of survival. Dependent on reproductive efficiency. Current libido. Infinite. Global status. The last male. Terror battled with a sudden, unbidden surge of heat deep within his gut, making his breath catch in his throat as a primal instinct awoke. His body reacted before his mind could process the absurd words floating in the air, a strange, overwhelming strength filling his tired limbs. Warmth, fierce and primal, spread outward from his chest, instantly dulling the sharp pain of his bruised limbs and replacing it with raw energy. Those red-eyed women faltered for a fraction of a second, sniffing the air as if they could smell the incredible change occurring within him. Wild, desperate cries erupted from them as they realized what he was, their eyes widening in sheer disbelief, awe, and ecstatic joy. Scrambling with renewed frenzy, they threw themselves forward, a chaotic mass of limbs, grasping hands, and wild hair, completely ignoring their own safety. Dust swirled around them, kicked up by their frantic, scrambling feet as they fought bitterly with one another to reach him first. Eros tried to pull himself up against a ruined stone pillar, his muscles screaming under the sudden, terrifying surge of energy pulsing through his veins. Escape was entirely impossible, the exit blocked by a solid wall of desperate bodies clamoring to touch his skin and feel his presence. Hemming him in, they formed a suffocating circle of panting breath, wild eyes, and outstretched hands that reached for his clothes. Their collective heat washed over him, thick, intoxicating, and completely overwhelming his senses until he could barely think straight.
Please.
He gasped, though he didn't even know what he was begging for as the gap between him and the horde closed entirely. A single figure emerged from the front of the pack, faster and more determined than the rest, her eyes locked onto his face. As the first woman, a skeletal figure with eyes like burning coals, closes in, her fingers, tipped with broken nails, trace a jagged line across his cheek, leaving behind a searing heat and a whisper, "Finally."